I'm going live so we can get the show done because my hunger is growing. So I hit record.
Oh, I don't even have Audition open.
Oh no. Yeah, I joined early to record the show, but then we ended up just actually talking and hanging out instead of like starting the show like we normally would right away. I really do look forward to hanging out in the same room occasionally. I think we're going to have a hybrid mode where...
I got a lot of games we could play. That Amanda
Scott,
play.
my Maria, I haven't even broken the shrink wrap on it. I want to play that game so bad. And
I got a lot of tiny games.
I even read the rules again to be like, oh, maybe Emily and I should play it. But no, that game sucks unless you have exactly 3 people. 2 people is no bueno for that game.
I got a lot of tiny games that require several people.
Also, my PAX Renaissance Kickstarter just arrived.
Oh, okay.
A big box came, and I was like, oh no, what Kickstarter did I forget that I did? And now I don't have anywhere to put. But it ended up being a game I was actually looking forward to, despite the trouble of one of the creators of it. All right, guess we can just get going. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is GeekNights. Tonight, actually, I didn't say the date. Can tell where my mind's at today.
I felt something was off.
Something was off. I felt something was off too, but it took my brain a minute to get past the fact that it was saying words to be like, yo, dog, you didn't fucking say it. All right, take 2. It's April 8th, 2021. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is GeekNights. Tonight, we are talking about Scarcity. So, you might recall, back on Thursday, April 11th, 2019, we did an episode of GeekNights that's relevant to this. But I was working from home, doing my thing, and our doorbell rang. That's super weird because, one, even in non-COVID times, this is a building with like a doorman, like there's someone at the front desk that won't let people in unless they're like allowed to come in. Like no one would knock on our door unless we knew they were coming.
Sometimes the door person will wave through like a delivery person and they'll ring the doorbell because I didn't, it happens.
We've our building's pretty good about that.
Sometimes the door person's not there.
Yeah. One time, I asked him one time because I've noticed that like you and all of our close friends who come over often never get hassled, but anyone else gets hassled. They do like remember everyone. Like it's amazing that they do this.
If you sit there bored at a desk all day, all you can do is look at people.
Yep. Look at people and look at your screen. Like that's all you got.
You remember people. It's that's how it is.
The dude doing the night shift is super cool because he's definitely just like, I'm gonna sit here, play video games 99% of the time. I don't have to do anything else. And then 1% of the time,
I'll bike to work and there'll be someone that I'll see for like 1 second, like while I'm crossing the bridge. And if I just see that person, it's 1 second I see them. Like I see them come, or maybe a few.
I know that feeling. I know that exact feeling.
You see that you don't know them, you never talk to them, you don't know anything about them. You just see their face in the same place a few times. Right. It doesn't have to be daily. It could be like maybe once a week you see them.
Yep.
Right? And it's like, you remember that person now.
There's a set of people like that I just would like see on the 7 train like multiple times a week because we have very similar schedules. And it was very clear that they also see me the same way.
Yep.
Like more frequent eye contacts with those people followed by looking away.
Someone I see on the subway platform once in a while because we, go to work at the same time. It's like eventually you're sort of.
Oh no, the listener even posted. The listener in the stream was like, "You didn't say the day." So anyway, our doorbell rings. So we go to answer it, and it's one of the maintenance people, and they say something.
Was there water in the ceiling again?
There's a water in the ceiling again. What they said was one of the most unnerving things that a maintenance person can ask you if you live in a high-rise in New York City. Are you having any flooding problems?
Yep.
I think that's second only to have you seen the rat? So we're like, no, followed by let's check the apartment in detail. And he comes in with us. And sure enough, there's no flood in our apartment. The downstairs has a big flood. And he found in the closet in this room, in the back of it, if you put your ear up against the wall, there's a very slow and steady drip.
So the dripping was going between your walls, but not hitting your apartment.
Yep, like it was bouncing off of some studs inside the wall, but it wasn't like touching our drywall or getting into our apartment. And then, so basically he was like, okay, I'm going to continue this investigation upward. And we were like, yeah, if this gets louder at any point, we will come find you and let you know. And he was like, thank you. And it's still dripping right now, but it's not a problem for me.
Oh, well, not a problem for you yet.
It has not changed in cadence in any way. Like it has not gotten louder at all.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So that was a momentary fun. Just when he asked that question, I had that sinking feeling because this building is a history of floods, as we've talked about so many times that we did an episode on it.
Almost everyone's got a water in the ceiling story. It's just so common.
Yeah. So in the news, this is an American political news that is actually a moderately big deal because, as you are painfully aware, no matter where you live in the world, if you're online at all, you know that America, unique among nations, has a gun problem.
You don't say.
There are other countries that have gun problems, but America's gun problem is so unique in that we could end it almost instantly if we had even the most minimal will to do so. And yet, a near majority of Americans desperately do not want to solve this problem and actively prevent us from taking even the most minimal steps. And there's a lot of political reasons why we're like, generally the Congress has to deal with that kind of thing. There's very relatively limited things like a president could do. And the notable news is that our president, Joe Biden, did today actually announce something that Obama had avoided doing and tried to rely on Congress. Biden and the Democrats have definitely shifted now in this current, post the former guy political climate, post, wow, waiting for Congress literally just cannot solve anything. They're starting to do the things that they can do without our Congress's permission that were seen as like things you shouldn't do in the past. They're starting to do them, which is a little glimmer of hope.
Anything you have the power to do,
you should do. So there are going to be some executive orders to do some gun control things that the president legally can do without any approval from Congress. They can just do it, and he's doing them. That, I think, it's like the big news is that they're doing something with that power as opposed to nothing. That is possibly a transformative step in American politics. I am cautiously optimistic because you can imagine why. But this is worth paying attention to, especially because despite the fact that in terms of our political system, the slight majority of people running our government are very pro-gun, if you actually poll American people, like 75% of Americans want to have massive gun control. But that is not reflected in our government at all. And I'm not going to dwell on this because we've talked.
But it's not a democratic vote where one person gets one vote.
Yeah, America's democracy is deeply undemocratic, and this is a very important good step. This does not solve this problem, but this is a meaningful step that is actually happening for real. And I think that tiny victory is worth a tiny amount of celebration. However, at the same time, there have been, I believe, 21 mass shootings since the Georgia mass shooting. And there was a mass shooting during the announcement about this gun control thing. And it's so, like...
You knew there was going to be. You
of
had
course.
To see that coming.
But it just made me realize how little I even notice when there are mass shootings in America.
Well, because it became it's now like car accidents where, it's killing tens of thousands, how many piles of human beings, right? But it becomes so commonplace that the media stops talking about it. So unless it happens right next to you where you can see it, it's not a thing for you.
So actually, that's an interesting thing because during COVID, we can't do things. So we have that car, at least for COVID. So every weekend before it got cold, we would drive upstate and hike in the wilderness alone and then come back home. So we didn't contact people. And on the way home, I'd say 75, 80% of the time, there'd be a big traffic pileup because of a fatal accident. Because on those roads coming into New York from the north, there's on average, last I checked, a fatal accident, one per day, I think was the stat, just on this tiny set of roads. But, and that's a terrifying statistic. Imagine if there was just some nutbag with a gun sitting on the FDR Drive, and every day he got to shoot someone. And no one had no one did anything about this.
Yeah, if you kill someone killed someone with a car in Brooklyn today, and they just got away with it.
There's almost never
nothing's
consequences.
gonna happen. There's no consequences because they did it with a car. So,
and I us, like, we're super mad about cars, and activists
if I kill
about
someone with a gun by accident, even the cops are gonna do something about it, even though I'm a white guy.
Yep. But
you know.
so doing that drive every day, like, even though I'm already super mad about cars and the damage cars do, it really made it visceral how many fatal accidents I saw with my own eyes. Because up until this point, like, I haven't had a car since 2008 and a half. Like, mid 2009, I didn't have a car that worked anymore. And as soon as I have a car again and I drive here, I see a fatal accident. On average, 75 to 80% of the times I drive that car.
I don't, if I knew how to make people value human life that was not the human life of someone that is them or someone they know,
Yep.
I would do it. But some people value it and some people don't.
What's the quote that I use so often that like, it's just like that it expresses this so well? I don't know how to explain to you to care about other people.
Yeah, it's like, well.
But the extra tragedy of this mass shooting is that it was a former NFL player, and there is a high likelihood this overlaps with CTE and the damage that comes from people playing football, and the Venn diagram of easy access to guns. That America is just a broken country for so many reasons.
Everybody knows it. It's not news.
Yep. I hope this does spur more conversation about football, because CTE is also something that we're not addressing in sports. Like, hockey's doing like baby, football's doing basically nothing. Yeah, that's all my depressing news. I started with, hey, maybe there's a sliver of hope. Oh, by the way, America.
I mean, the reasons the country is in the pooper are still true, even though the president has changed, right? And
I think it just comes down to our democracy.
None of those things are new, but it doesn't hurt to repeat them.
It doesn't hurt to repeat them, because we can't forget. We can't get complacent and just say, well, that's just how it is. Because if we do get to that point, it'll literally always be that way.
Yeah, that's, repeating them is definitely something you got to do. Otherwise,
just to remember. But also, don't repeat them so much that you lose sight of when we do make things slightly better. Like, don't go into a nihilistic death spiral either.
I mean, New York State officially declared that gun violence is a public health crisis. I don't know what that official declaration will result in, but it's also, I guess, good, right?
Yeah. Because New York could start passing more and more restrictive gun controls in the state, and then there'll be court battles and everything.
And also there was all those laws like, the CDC can't, research guns or whatever as a health crisis, but now that's gone, right? They are doing that research now.
Exactly.
So
so I guess the moral of all that news is celebrate victories. Don't forget shit's still fucked, but don't get stuck believing that shit will always be fucked. Yet. If we get to the point to where this is unresolvable, this is GeekNights becomes a very different thing.
Right, so it's tough to think about, will shit always be fucked? Because if you, on the one hand, you got those people, right, the Bill Gates type people, right? Insufferable ones who were like, look at the course of human history. Things are always getting better, right? Even though there's bad things and downturns in the short term, over the long term, everything always gets better.
Yeah, but fuck you. One of those downturns was World War II and the genocide.
Right. Right. It's like, and, but also those upturns are only including, certain people.
Well, those upturns leave a lot of people behind.
Exactly. Right. So there's those people, but then there's also people who are like, hey, look, you can look at any point in human history, which isn't that old, actually.
40,000-ish years is like it.
Whatever scale you're using. But in terms of human civilization, there has never been a time where shit wasn't fucked the fuck up.
Yep.
Right? You pick any year. There was shit that was fucked the fuck up, right?
Watch, someday some researcher's going to find that there was like one day in like 411 AD where like nothing significantly bad happened and everyone had a good day.
Right.
Like literally every human on Earth.
All right, but then the third thing, right, is that like, look, you're zooming out like that. You're looking at everyone, right? Or you're looking at certain peoples here and there, right? But there are if you combine places and times and you zoom in, right, you can find, right, places where people are living and there's nothing everything is great.
Yep.
And there might be bad shit happening in the world at that moment.
Yep.
But so if it's possible for some people in some places and sometimes to, not have awful lives of horrors,
then there's hope.
Then it should be possible to just extend that to all the places. We can't extend it to the past.
Yep, but we can zoom that camera, take that zoomed in camera and zoom it out a little bit further.
Right. If we can extend it to all places in the present, because we only can do anything in the present, you can't do anything in the right
yet.
Then, it should be possible to make things better, but we also never have.
Yep. But I guess the last point there, and we can move on, is the course of things over the longest scale generally getting better is the result of a lot of hard work too. Like, we can't pretend that just happens naturally, because when
but also, I think it's tough because when you say, okay, things getting better, right? It's like, well, almost all of the, things you would think of as getting better, like, oh, we invented medicine. How did you manage that?
Yep.
By causing harm elsewhere. That's how, right?
But then we made medicine less harmful to make.
Right. It's like, oh, you got, how did you...
What was that one dude who was like, hey, I solved the problem of car engines breaking. I put lead in there. That'll be fine. Oh, no. Same motherfucker. Hey, I invented something that makes refrigerators work. Oh, no.
How'd you get all the resources to build that amazing stuff and do all that research?
Yep.
Oh, by colonizing people.
Yep. Rare earth metals. Oh, they're rare, you say. Oh, and they underpin our entire society?
Right. All the pluses are just someone else, how many things are just a plus across the board, right? Not enough. Not many.
So I got one really tiny news then. Let's go on a nicer note. This would be a Tuesday news, but I think it's worth talking about. The Super Mario Brothers 1 speed run world record was just broken.
It was hard to believe because I watched the video of the previous breakage, right?
And it was
like, really? How are you going to improve on that, right?
The answer was going after this one person went after like an extremely difficult maneuver that is frame perfect and sub-pixel perfect timing in one part at the very end of the game. And if you mess that up, the whole run's worthless. Just give up, try again, start over immediately.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it's a short run.
4 minutes, 54 seconds,
right.
948.
It's not like you spent 30 minutes and then failed. If 4 minutes and then a failure, you could do that.
I don't know how those like Final Fantasy speedrunners or like Chrono Trigger speedrunners like, all right, 6 hours into my run, start over. I forgot to click on something.
I don't know how either kind does it, right? Because even if it's a short run, it's like, okay, I could do a few runs, but then I'd get bored. I couldn't put in the 1,000 runs necessary to hone it perfectly.
You know what I did do that for, though?
DDR. You don't have to be as perfect on the long runs because it's so long, but at the same time, it's so long, I can't beat Final Fantasy anything one time.
Yeah. Like, imagine instead of going to work every day, you just beat Chrono Trigger once. Every day.
I couldn't beat Chrono Trigger in a day, even if I woke up and started immediately and didn't eat.
Anyway, the reason I'm making this my news now is if you are not listening to like Tuesday Gaming Geek Nights, you don't care about games, whatever, like, just watch this video. This is amazing, even if you have no idea what a video game is. Like, this is an amazing human feat that is worth watching for anyone. Mm-hmm. That's all I got on that.
In some news / thing of the day combo, so I guess it's good to end the news with it, right? And it's somewhat old. It's like a few weeks old, maybe. But the Louvre, right? Talking about, colonizing. Because everyone's locked inside, and I think, I don't know, is the Louvre renovating again or it's closed? I don't know. But
the two times I went to Paris, because I knew someday I'd want to go back with Emily, I didn't go into any museums or like anything, anytime I've ever been there.
I would just go again. What's the big deal?
Well, partly because I was busy. Like I could basically mostly only do a lot of stuff in the evening and at night when all those things close way early in Paris.
Oh, of course, yeah. But anyway, the Louvre has digitized and uploaded over 482,000 works of art from their archives. You can just go to the website and explore the Louvre digitally.
Oh, it's even got a map. You just got to walk around it. Ooh.
Yeah, they got everything. But it helps to be able to write in French to use this. I didn't really, if you want to search for something, right? You probably have to type
Le Grill. What the hell is that?
Exactly. You can probably, with a little Google Translate, you can probably find the thing you're looking for, or just if you're not looking for any particular thing, it won't matter as much.
But, I feel like I'm just gonna wander around this thing.
I feel like archive.org needs to, download this whole thing really quickly, right? Who knows how long it's going to be there, how well they're going to maintain it, etc. But this is now like a great treasure of humanity that this exists. So that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that's actually super cool, that, especially because of our topic for the main bit around scarcity and how this is an example of reducing scarcity just improves the world for everyone.
Yeah, pretty much. All right.
But anyway, things of the day. So there was a boat drama recently, and this is a little thing, my thing of the day.
The one where the boat got stuck, right?
Yeah, the one where the boat got stuck. God, that already feels like it was a long time ago. Fucking COVID.
Yeah, it's somewhat recent still.
Yeah, it's recent, but it feels longer ago than it was. Anyway, this is a page. This is the kind of stuff that I am like weirdly into in my when I want to go on a Wikipedia binge. This is the type of shit I'm into, like weird infrastructure. This actually breaks down for transporting things on boats, in planes, in cars, in trucks, all trains, all the ways we transport things. What are all the different kinds of standard shipping containers and what are they used for? And it was fascinating. I learned a lot from this relatively short page. And there's pictures of all of them. I don't even want to try to explain any of this to you. You will enjoy reading this page. It'll take you about 10 minutes maybe. And you're going to learn a lot of interesting stuff. And if you want to learn more, I guarantee this is a rabbit hole that could consume the rest of your life.
All right, so this would normally be like a Monday thing of the day, but I want to branch out a little bit. So if, there's the web, which is HTTP, right?
Yep.
You send an HTTP request to a web server. They send you back HTML, JavaScript.
Send me the resource at that URI.
Right.
Here you are. Here's the resource that was at that.
Your browser does all sorts of stuff with the HTML, right? Back in the day, there are lots of other protocols out there. Another popular one from the past that is still barely alive is Gopher, right? You've probably heard of that one. Well, there's a semi-recent-ish one that I've learned about that is more active than you would think, and its activity is increasing. It's obviously still vanishingly small.
Yeah.
But it is on the rise, and it's called Gemini, Project Gemini, named after the space project, but not the space project, which makes it kind of hard to Google for, because the space project keeps showing up every time. And basically, it's sort of, they're saying they're not looking to replace HTTP or Gopher, right? They're simply looking to be a third thing that exists on its own. And the way it works is basically pretty similar to, HTTP, but very, very limited, right? You make a request, it sends you back not HTML, but this sort of markdown format. And basically, it doesn't tell. There's no scripts that can be sent to you, and there's no no scripts. And
they actually they listed
styling.
Something. They actually on the page, their overview really explains it so succinctly. It's heavier than Gopher. It's lighter than HTTP. It will not replace either. It strives for a power to weight ratio that's good, and it takes user privacy seriously.
There's no cookies. There's no way, if you want to log into something, right? If you want to have a login, the way it works is you make, HTTP actually supports this, but no one uses it.
Yeah.
You make a key, a client key, right? And you use keys. You don't use, passwords or anything. I guess you could, but it wouldn't work really well because there's no cookies or anything, right? Yep. There's no way to track anybody on this, right? And it's super fast, obviously, because you're just sending text, right? You're not sending a pile of files. You could download files over it, like an image file or whatever, but it's kind of not great for that. So you'll probably use something else. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is real. Maybe once I update the GeekNights website in HTTP,
I would like to have a Gemini resource.
Or make a Gemini version so you could browse recruit.com on Gemini and get through all our content. It'll probably be the fastest, most convenient way to get through the content, even though I'll make a really nice HTTP.
I realize, unless this was a Monday show and we spent some time on it, it's hard to articulate to a non-technical person who doesn't know how the web works, like in detail, why this is so interesting.
Try it. You're basically, you can try this very easily. If you just go to the website, you can download your choice of a browser, right? It basically a Firefox equivalent.
Yep.
But it'll be a Gemini thing, not right? And you'll go to a page and it'll be completely familiar to you. It'll just be basically like looking at web pages that are all text.
Yep.
And really fast.
It would be I guess the best way I would describe it is it would be a lot like how the early web worked for real.
Yeah, before, you could put a tiled background or...
Because the way the early web worked was you type in some sort of URI to get a resource, and that resource was just content that was marked up so you could display it any way you wanted, and it gave you a way to, from that resource, link to other resources. That was pretty much it. Most of the stuff you do with the web today is way beyond that.
So I'm a kind of a fan of this.
I'm a big fan of this because this is... I like the idea.
I'm hoping it continues to rise.
I think
people put stuff on here.
I think the stuff that is...
We'll do a full show on it.
I think the stuff that is best to put here are like data sets, blog type things, Wikipedia type things, information you want to share, and link to other data.
Yeah, I would love to see people just scrape and or hook up to web APIs and create Gemini-facing user interfaces for them. So it's like you want to search twitter.com, right? Someone hooked up to the Twitter API. You go to Gemini something, you type in your search query, and now you're searching Twitter, but you're on Gemini. You're not hooking up to Twitter directly, right? Their server is sort of a go-between on Gemini on one end, Twitter API on the other end.
It's like a lightweight way to interface with APIs and data sets, but without all the shit that comes along with the current World Wide Web.
Yep. Someone go take an open database, right, and just create a Gemini interface for it, and then...
I guess where I struggled is when I was going to try to explain it, I was actually going to explain Gopher, but I don't think anyone listening to Geek Nights has ever actually used Gopher.
While they say they're not out to replace Gopher, I feel like it replaces
Gopher. I mean, Gopher technically still works, but are there any Gopher...
People use it, yeah. It's not much. It's really, really tiny, but there are people that use it.
Yeah, it does. But I guess
people still use news groups. People still use IRC. People still use
if I point like Chrome at a Gopher URI, I guess that'll work.
I don't know if Chrome will do it, but
yeah, that's what I don't know. I haven't thought about Gopher until Project Gemini.
It might do it, but there are definitely plenty of applications that will do it.
Anyway, it's kind of moot because Gopher actually was too limiting. And there's a lot of problems with Gopher. Gopher serves a more narrow focus, I think. Anyway. So in the meta moment, we're reading the Tale of Genji again. I slowed down a little bit just because it got really nice out, but now it's getting nice enough out to where I can sit in the park and just read. So I think I'm actually going to accelerate my Tale of Genjiing over the next...
I better also accelerate then.
I think over this weekend, I'm going to accelerate rapidly, but we'll see. I'll warn you if I don't accelerate rapidly. You can assume I will.
What's killing me lately is like at work, I'm actually doing some fucking work. So that welcome to that world. Yeah, it's not often, right? It's mostly I don't have more work. It's just I got a particular item of work that is time consuming, right? So once I can finish it, then I'll be back to normal, barely working.
It's interesting because I got the same thing, but it's more. My work requires a lot of mental energy now, way more than any job I've ever had did. Even though the actual work to do is not that hard, the mental energy of deciding what to do and just dealing with it all is a lot.
Just roll a die. Just pick one.
Yeah, that has drastic and possibly world-affecting consequences for some of these things. Yeah.
You get paid either way, right?
Yeah, but I'm also increasingly dealing with like more management type stuff, which just introduces a whole human factor and emotional labor factor that I've really never had to deal with in my life at work.
I don't do that. That's
like my life up to this point has been, here are tasks and things to deal with them. And it's never like had to get above that.
That's my life, yeah. I mean, my management style is basically, you're working. I expect you to be competent and to know what to do. What are you coming to me for?
Nah.
It's my manager, right? So
Yeah.
that's why
So
I'm not,
the way I can
that's why I'm
describe it
not
is
managing anybody.
I
Oh,
get
are you telling me you don't know what you should be doing and you don't know how to do it? Why are you hired? Fired? Get a
people only
different
come
job.
to me when there is a mutually exclusive decision to be made that the existing framework I've set up for making that decision does not address it, or where there's disagreement because maybe I didn't know something. And as a result, something is blocked and I have to make a decision of how to proceed.
Anyway.
So I only have to deal with the edge cases, which means every time I talk to someone, it's always something contentious and difficult. Because if it was not contentious and difficult, no one needs to bother me.
Well, anyway, just in case this is the first time the listener has ever heard of us for some reason, they ended up hearing this. I don't know how that.
We're two white guys doing a podcast. Like, God, that's novel.
Why are you here? Go away. But if you're here and for some reason you want more of that because the internet doesn't have enough of that.
Guess what? There are over 1,400 episodes of this online for free.
Not only do we have a website, we have an email address, we have Twitter, we have several Twitter accounts, YouTube accounts, we got a Discord, we have an old forum that's in archive mode and a new forum. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Podcast, Google Podcast, fucking LinkedIn. Rim put a thing there. We got a Steam group with a curator page. We're on Board Game Geek. We got a subreddit no one uses. We got Twitch channels that don't get used that much, but we got an Instagram that doesn't get used. We got a Patreon. We are on even on stupid Facebook. We're thinking about deleting that.
Yep.
I've been thinking about deleting it for how many years? I haven't deleted it. But yeah, we got a newsletter, email newsletter. It's like we are on every place on the internet. We put our stuff up there. If you know any places, I asked this in our Discord. No one had any good ideas.
Yep. What did I add? I added the Amazon fashion page and I added the LinkedIn page so far.
Yeah, someone suggested Snapchat, but I don't really know what we would do with that. Someone suggested Parler. That was funny. Someone's OnlyFans. Rim, you could do that. You don't like wearing clothes.
Oh,
right?
OnlyFans could be fun. OnlyFans doesn't have to be pornographic. It could just be like, hey,
It doesn't have to be, but anyway.
Hey, you want to pay to have a conversation with Rim? I feel like you won't do that a second time.
Yeah, there's also on Discord recently added this stage functionality. We might be using that in the future for our live stuff.
Yeah, so join our Discord because
it really suits our model. So, and especially once they add video to it.
And what I will say, I'll say this now, way back in the day, we talked about it kind of publicly, occasionally doing call-in shows. That was actually originally one of the ideas for what Friday Geek Nights would have been. You know why we didn't do a Friday Geek Nights? Because doing a podcast 5 days a week was way, way too much compared to 4 in terms of having a life.
Mm-hmm.
And don't worry, we're not going to do the Friday Geek Nights, but call-in shows, we came up with a whole pipeline on how to do them, and they were a giant pain in the ass. And that's why we never did them. That Discord stage opens the door to occasionally doing a call-in segment, and I think that could be
also
fun.
Makes it a lot easier to do guest shows.
Yeah, like doing a guest interview. We could do a live stream of that guest interview. You should see the hurdles we go through to record an interview, especially during COVID times.
We don't do it that often.
Yeah.
So we might do it more often once it becomes easier. So yeah, come to all the places we are on the internet to find us if you really want to, and also tell us places on the internet that we're not there so we can be there.
Yeah, unless they're bad places. There'll never be a Geek Nights Gab.
Yeah, of course.
Of course not, but you never know. Someone will make that joke. Like, oh, Harler was a vote on Gab. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't care if it's an unpopulated place. We were just talking about making a Geek Nights.
Yeah, I only care if it's a bad place filled with Nazis and child porn.
It's somewhat likely to happen. If it's a super popular place, but it sucks, we're not going to be there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we've been talking about this a lot in our own normal lives. And it's been a topic that has been brought up a lot in relation to things like, say, NFTs, which are bad. They're a scam. Don't buy them. But the concept of scarcity is something that a lot of nerds in particular don't necessarily think about that much. And it's often people complain oh, I'm trying to buy badges for a con and scalpers, blah, or I want a video card, blah. And they end up having a lot of discourse about the method of getting the scarce thing, but they usually don't get to the conversation of why is the thing scarce and what does that even mean?
Right. So this came up again today after coming up several times in the past because my brain spontaneously realized on its own, and the internet confirmed, right, that the word scalper, what's the etymology of that word? It's obvious once you think about it for 2 seconds. It's just you have to think about it for 2 seconds, and it's like, oh, they used to scalp Native Americans and cash in their scalps.
Yep.
Right? That's
Well,
where that word comes from.
what I
So
will
now
say
I'm
is,
comfortable using that word, but I guess we'll use it for now. Until
what I
we
will
find a
say
better
is,
word.
I gotta look around more about that word. There is a significant debate about the origin because it far predates that situation potentially.
That's interesting, but I would be willing to wager that the people trying to fight the etymology might be racist. Who knows?
Yeah, no, they're not trying to fight it, but there are a lot of
It
references.
doesn't seem unlikely. Right?
There are a lot of references to it around like scalpeling out parts of multi-use train tickets to generate additional train tickets.
Maybe. Regardless, right, there is a thing that happens often where there is a limited good, right? And that limited good is, capitalism, right? We're in
Yep.
capitalism. So is sold at a price below what people are willing to pay for it, right?
The phrase, because we should use the jargon where it's appropriate if we define it. The jargon there, that is the price the market will bear.
Sure. So you got 1,000 seats in your theater, you're going to have a concert, right? If change the price to $1,000 a ticket, right? Giving you a total revenue of 1,000 thousands, it would sell out because you're that popular. If you change the price to 2,000, okay, now it's not going to sell out, right?
Yep.
So
and in traditional, like this, there's a more nuanced take on this now, but if you learn like baby's first economics in high school, they'll talk about the demand curve. This is basically what that is. The higher your price is, the fewer things you'll sell, but the fewer things you need to sell to make the same amount of money.
Yep. So the correct price, correct in quotes, right, is somewhere in there. It's like the highest price you can set where you still sell all the 1,000 tickets. And then, right, if you set a lower price than that, you're just losing money. That's not what a smart capitalist does. And if you set a price too high, it's like, well, maybe you could actually make more money, mathematically speaking, in which case maybe that is what you do, right? It's like, if I can sell 1,000 tickets at $1,000, but 999 tickets at $2,000, well, that's clearly more money. Right? That's almost twice as much money. Not quite, but almost, right? So maybe selling out isn't the best idea. But what happens too often, and nerds always get mad about this constantly, which is why it keeps coming up all the time in nerd discussions of all nerd communities, is something will go on sale that is limited in quantity, like convention tickets or some limited merch thing, some whatever. And the price for that thing will be very reasonable, right? Sneakers, just a very reasonable price.
Like poll 100,000 people and everyone says, yeah, I would buy that thing at that price.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure, but
like I would buy a 3080 at that price right now.
I would go to PAX for $50 tickets. Yes, I would, and that's what they maybe $75 tickets. That's what they charge. That's what I would pay. Yeah, but there's 1,000 tickets, and there's 10 or 100,000 people who were willing to and want to buy them at that price. So what inevitably happens is somebody comes along who doesn't even want the tickets. They just want money. And they arbitrate. They buy the tickets at the lower price and sell them at the higher price. And now the nerds or the customers, right, are targeting that arbitrator as the evil party. And that is the person who receives the grievance, is this person, the scalper who comes in and is just making money. And very often, those scalper type people are not always, right, but very often they're just people of limited means, just trying to get by in this world with a hustle.
That's something, especially during COVID, I think a lot about. Like, below a certain level of harm, I'd really try not to begrudge someone their hustle, because this is, the cruel realities of an evil world are the cruel realities of an evil world.
Right. So I see that, and I try to put the blame on, sometimes there is a limited quantity because there has to be a limited quantity.
An intrinsic limitation. Like PAX cannot make another hotel room appear in the city of Boston. They just cannot do that.
Right. There's only so many seats in the theater, right? This person isn't going to put on, the band isn't going to play 20 nights in a row. Right. And if they did, the same people would come every night. Broadway shows, even though they are putting on several shows a week, it's still not enough.
You can only make a hockey arena so big where the new seats, people can't see anything. Like, there's a physical limit that cannot, in any, like, let's say, like, forget, like, post-human, like, quantum physics nonsense. For the foreseeable, reasonable future, it is literally impossible to increase the supply. Full stop.
Right, but in other cases, say, a shiny Charizard Pokemon card. Pokemon cards are a big thing right now, right? You
Yep.
can't get them anywhere. It's like, yeah, there are limited resources on Earth for printing Pokemon cards,
But they're effectively unlimited for
right.
all intents and purposes.
Given the capacity of human industry, even now, right? They could make effectively infinite Pokemon cards. We have the ability as humans to print a full set of Pokemon cards for everyone who wants one.
Everyone on Earth could have a shiny Charizard, and it would the incremental cost of doing so would effectively be 0.
Yeah, it's just cardboard. It's really inexpensive. And, if you just said how many Pokemon card wanters are out there, here, full set for everyone. They could make one for everyone. They could probably sell it at a reasonable price, like $100 or something, and make profit on that, right? They are making less simply because they want to.
Yep. Now, the reasons they want to, in those cases, get pretty complex because on one hand, some things, and again, this is psychology, like not everyone does this. Like Scott and I are, as you know, if you've listened to the show, we're pretty anti-collecting.
I learned.
Oh, yeah. I used to really want shiny X-Men cards. Like, you have no idea. But at the same time, when I was a kid, I remember thinking, this fucking complete set of foil Wolverine 2 series are going to pay for college someday.
I mean, I thought that they might, but I liked them also.
I did also like them. I would, bring them to school and show them off.
Even though I was prone to collecting things, I didn't collect things I didn't also like.
That is true.
I wasn't collecting things just for, ooh, this could be worth money, but I hate it.
Yep, I collected, I really wanted those foil Wolverine cards because we would trade X-Men cards.
Comic that was all shiny, and I was like, maybe it'll be worth a lot someday, but I love reading it. I'm going to read it 10 times.
Yep. Yeah. So, and while we're pretty anti-collecting now, I do not collect physical things. I don't even collect digital things. I am very personally opposed to that in my life because I think it's a
Museums
detriment.
can do the collecting. Archive.org does the collecting. I don't need to do the collecting.
But for something like a shiny Charizard card, the problem is people seek it because it's rare. And if it was as available as the non-shiny Charizard, everyone would have the shiny one, and the shiny one wouldn't be special, so people wouldn't feel like they were special if they had it, so they would not seek it out. Thus, there would likely actually be less demand for it, meaning the price point you could sell it at would drop and approach the level of the current non-shiny Charizard. Mm-hmm. Now,
so think about this, right? That means, let's say, you had a concert, right? And you could make the concert hall as big as you wanted, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone could hear and see, right? It was a perfect magical concert hall, right? So you make it 1,000 seats. People really want it bad. They're willing to pay a lot to get in. You make it 2,000 seats. It still sells out. People really want to get in. You make it 100,000 seats, right? Even though all the seats can see and hear equally, they're all front row amazing seats because magic, right? Because there are more seats, people will actually want less. There are people who will want to go only because there are fewer seats, because then it's like, I was there.
Now, you might be thinking, but I'm not like that.
Be there in the first place.
You might be thinking, I'm not like that. And that's yeah, sure. I'm not like that either. But guess what? In aggregate, people are like that.
And also what's interesting to me that I keep asking this and no one ever answers me in my whole life, right, is that there's a situation where a person can see and understand a scam, right? Or a psychological failing, right? They know that the wine in the fancy bottle tastes better. They know that psychological trick, right? They've read about it. They fully understand it, right? And yet they fall for it. And it's like, at least when I think about myself, I'm constantly thinking about those psychological tricks.
Well, this is where, I don't want to say this is you are not better, we are not better, but some people, due to circumstance, biology, upbringing, all these different factors, introspect the decisions they make more carefully than other people.
I'll see people introspect, right? They'll say, yes, I see that scam. And then they'll say, yes, I fell for it. They know, like they introspected that they did fall for it, and they say they'll fall for it again.
But also think of
yes, that stove is hot. I understand fully that if I touch it, my hand will burn. And they say they're gonna touch it, and they do touch it.
Think about,
they know, and they said they know.
Think about the show we just did 2 days ago, where we talked about JRPGs, talked about grinding, and the anecdote I shared. I am personally right now deeply opposed to time wasting in video games. Don't waste my time. I only have so many seconds left on this earth before this body's gonna fall apart. But at the same time, when I started playing Final Fantasy I to test an emulator out, I caught myself enjoying grinding on some imps and like playing the game. I fell for it, despite not only knowing that I personally hate grinding, but having like been vocal about that aspect.
I mean, sometimes I'll see something like, something cool, like on Twitter, someone will talk about something like a new product. I'll click on it and I'll see that it's like, time's running out, right? There's only so many. And I'll be like, ooh, I better buy one. I can feel myself wanting to buy one. It worked, right? It worked on me, but I felt it working. I saw it. It's like I'm a fish. I bit the hook.
But also,
I said, wait a minute, that's a hook. And then I got off the hook.
But some of it too is the one factor is for some people, like Animal Crossing is a good example. There are some things like in Animal Crossing, like people play that game. Imagine some people earnestly like those X-Men cards. They just want the thing. They want the shiny Charizard, not because it's rare, but because they want to put it in their Animal Crossing world. Like they want it for its own value. They enjoy it intrinsically for what it is. And for them, the scarcity actually makes their experience worse. They would be happy if everyone could get that special Charizard to put in their Animal Crossing. But
instead, that person is made to suffer, waiting in lines, fighting with people, paying exorbitant prices on the resellers market.
And again, I blame the companies, because the companies are using that false scarcity not always to make money. Like the sneakers, they could... Those sneakers, like fancy Jordans or whatever, you could probably raise the price on those sneakers by an order of magnitude and sell the exact same number. Why don't they do that? A whole bunch of reasons. One, the ill will that would probably come from doing that, as well as the social consequences of doing that, probably far outweigh the money you would make as a giant company.
Yeah, 'cause even though some of the people who buy them resell them, right?
A lot of kids just really want those Jordans because they're awesome.
Yeah, there are some kids who wait in the line and get them at an affordable price.
Yeah.
If you just had the initial MSRP be high, the kid would never get them, right? 0 kids would get them. It would just be the wealthy people. Now, there's a lot of kids who wait in line and don't get them, and those kids would actually be spared the burden of waiting in line. Right.
But at the same time, the incremental cost, if they agree that raising the price to that degree would cause too many problems, another alternative is make more Jordans. The incremental cost of making one more Jordan is 0. It rounds down to 0.
If you got 10,000 sneakerheads who want this new awesome shoe you just made, why not make 10,000 pairs of shoes? Why not just take pre-orders? Everyone tells you their size. You make exactly the shoes that everyone wants. You don't even make one extra shoe. You just let everyone pre-order and tell you their size and that they want it, and they commit to buying it. And then they give you their credit card, and you make a shoe for everybody and you send it out. Don't make the limited edition in the first place.
So the problem there is for some things, and we're being generic here, like we're using a lot of different examples. For some things, if the supply were higher, a lot of people no longer want the thing. So you end up making less money. You make more things and fewer of them get bought. Like fewer than if you made a smaller number of things at the same price. So you make 1,000 for $100 each. If you make 10,000 and you sell them for $100 each, you sell like a couple hundred. Like that can happen because the scarcity drives some percentage of the demand. And depending on the product, that percentage could be higher or lower for a lot of reasons. Third way to go would be, well, God, there's so many different ways you could go with this. A third way, thinking about Jordans.
The classic example, right, is one of the most evil companies there is, I guess.
De Beers.
I don't know where they rank now.
We've been mad about them since like RIT days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure other people have been mad about them even longer. I just
Oh yeah.
didn't know.
Well, I
Because no
remember
one
when
told
I
me,
was in
right?
high school when I learned like, oh, diamonds aren't worth shit. It's a scam.
Right. So there's this impression that I've had most of my life until I learned better that diamonds are like a rare, valuable gem, right? I think, it's just like a thing in culture, right? It's like, yeah, diamonds are rare and valuable. That they're just like,
Yep.
emeralds, rubies, right?
If you don't believe that what we're about to say is true, go look at how much you can sell a
I think
diamond for.
there are documentaries about it you can watch
Yeah,
if you care.
like take a diamond ring that's appraised at like $50,000. You'd be lucky to sell that for $500.
Right. So diamonds, not even going into the fact that a lot of them are mined by basically slaves, right? You talk about blood diamonds, or when you're talking about diamonds made in a lab, and also there's a whole thing, that's not relevant right now. But De Beers basically had a monopoly, still kind of does, right, on diamond mining. So what they would do is they would have all these diamond mines operating evilly, right? And all the diamonds would go to De Beers, literally. This isn't like some metaphorical thing, right? They collected all the diamonds from all the diamond mines into a vault, a literal vault, right? In one place, basically. I don't know, might have been several places, but effectively vaults, right? And every year, they would only allow a certain number of diamonds to leave the vault. Effectively, right? There's plenty of diamonds on the earth, but this one company controls them all. You can't get one unless you go through them, and they only release a certain amount on purpose. It's effectively the same thing as deciding to only print so many Charizards, and then they use their marketing to make commercials and things to make people believe that diamonds are rare and valuable. They made them rare, they made people want them, and then they jacked up the price. And so they've got a ton of something that is a high price. It's a high supply and a high demand and a high price. It doesn't match up because they basically cheated with monopoly power and scams.
And I think like the important thing for nerds to like think about with scarcity is that whenever something is scarce and you want it, really find out for real if that thing is scarce for a good reason or a bad reason. Like think about that first and understand it, because like for conventions, there's literally no way to solve that problem. You can either raise the prices, which then excludes people who have less money, or you make it just random who gets in. But you can't make more supply. There's literally no way to do that ever. It's impossible. So what are you going to complain about? Like, don't complain about it. Just try to find the system that's the most equitable to deal with it and minimize the pain of the fact that it's a limited supply thing. But
just get mad at the right thing, right?
Yep,
the world.
Because the reality is, even PAX, like PAX East, they could probably triple that badge price and still sell plenty of badges, and actually even make the experience of the people who get into PAX better, because it'd be less crowded. They'd have more money.
Only rich people would get in.
Yeah, only rich people would get in. Be a very different con. Probably a con I'd be less interested in going to.
Probably. Right?
Yeah, but again, look, changing these factors can increase or decrease demand, because demand can sometimes be caused by supply. And talking about that is way out of scope for this show, because at that point, you're going to hear me and Scott talk about how much we hate capitalism for at least an hour.
Right. But if someone out there intentionally, right, artificially reduces supply, right?
I think that is by default unethical and evil. Well, unless there are significant mitigating, like I don't give someone the benefit of the doubt, but there are situations where that could make sense.
Right. The only excuse capitalism has for its existence is that there are some things that are limited resources, and we can't figure out any kind of system to like fairly distribute those resources to all the people on the earth, right? If you didn't have money, and it's like, okay, we've got a concert that's happening, there's 100 seats. How do we choose which 100 people get that? There's no system you can come up with to fairly decide who to give the 100 tickets to. There just isn't, right? Random. It's like, that's not great. First in line, that's not great. Money, obviously not great. There is no answer that if you can come up with an answer, you will be like the savior of humanity.
Yep. And that brings us into something we've talked about, but just because the show, in case you didn't listen to the other Geek Nights, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, are a thing right now. And they are literally, one, they're a scam. The technology is meaningless. They are literally just a pyramid scam, full stat, like just 100% literally ignore them. But 2, what they're doing fundamentally is trying to use technology to take something that is not scarce, like a JPEG that I could copy, and artificially make it specifically scarce in a way that is hard to overcome. Now, the reality is they don't even do that. Like, NFTs don't even do what they say they do, but that's a separate conversation. NFTs only exist because evil capitalists are trying to scam people into believing they have value long enough to do effectively a pump and dump scam without all those pesky regulations that apply to things like penny stocks or money. There's a reason you can only buy NFTs with fake coins, because they're abstracting this by so many ways to make a non-scarce thing artificially and falsely scarce to trick people into buying it.
Now the thing is, we have these capitalist system that we suffer with, right? Because we can't think of a better answer.
I mean, we can think of a lot of better answers. There's a lot of political reasons why we can't implement them.
But in terms of just dealing with that fundamental problem, right, of there's only so many things, how do we distribute them, right? There's no perfect answer to that, right? But the real perfect answer, which you'll see in so many sci-fi novels, right, like Star Trek or The Culture or whatever, is there is no scarcity. We just have enough stuff for everyone. There's enough food for everyone. There's enough houses for everyone. There's enough spaceships for everyone.
Like here's a specific concrete example. This is something that this is a political thing that I strongly believe in as a specific policy that America should implement for real. And my idea is there should be grocery stores that exist in America that are just free. Everything in them is free. Take as much as you want. There's they don't have everything, obviously. They probably there'll be a selection of cheese and a selection of meats and a selection of vegetables, and they're just free.
Have the rare ultra fancy cheese because there's only so much to go around, right?
They might occasionally, one store runs out of stuff because something gets popular. Like the government changes, well, we have a new type of Swiss and it's hard to get for a while because people are excited about it. But there's no secondary market. If I take a ton of the government cheese, I can't sell it to anyone. They can go and get their own government cheese. Why are they going to buy it from me?
Well, you could go and take all the government cheese, and now you've got it all. And then
so obviously, you have some rules around. One, you got to make it easier for people to just get this stuff. Make it free, make it accessible. Maybe you do something like you show your government ID, and there's some high up limit. If you get more than 20 pounds of cheese in a week, you get cut off on cheese. Maybe you got to file a government form.
There are certain things, right, that we have the capacity, right, and not just digital things.
But we have the capacity in America to provide basic foodstuffs to literally every human being within the borders of America, full stop. We have that today. We could make that happen.
Not even just foodstuffs, but
plates,
basic
government plates,
hygiene, feminine hygiene products.
Even if we're say we're still in a world while we think we need to get away from cars, let's say
because you have eyeballs that don't work.
Let's say that right now it is still necessary for people in certain places in America to have cars to live. There should be a government car that's free. Now, there's obviously there's separate concerns around that, but things that are necessary to live.
Bicycle that's free.
Yeah, there should be free government bicycles. I think anyone in America who wants a basic bicycle should be able to just get one. The incremental cost of making the next bicycle to make that happen does round down to zero. And the main argument is that if you make things free, the more things you make free, the more businesses collapse and can't no one can make money selling bikes anymore. Yeah, no one can make money selling a basic ass bike anymore. Fancy bikes will still get made. There's still edges where capitalism makes sense and can exist.
Right,
but
because the marginal cost of making another carbon fiber road bike is not going to round down to zero. Ever.
But the marginal cost of making the equivalent of a Huffy, that kind of does round down to zero for a lot of reasons that are beyond the scope of this episode too.
Right.
And if you get to simpler things,
it's okay, you got your government bicycle, but it's you still probably need help maintaining it, right? Even if I got a free government house.
The listener, so the stream,
plumber.
It's funny, the stream is a little bit behind. People chat based on what they've seen in the stream. It lags behind. The listener came up with why don't you just make those things free right before we started saying it.
They should be right.
'Cause
Anything that we have the capacity as a human race, not just country, right?
Yeah.
But as a human race
I mean,
to
practically,
produce,
this ends up being by country for reasons like
right?
it's hard to have a
Anything we have the
unified world yet.
anything we have the capacity to produce in such large quantities that we can just make one for everyone who needs one, and it's not a problem. And there are many such things.
Yep.
Basically,
It's not everything, but it's more things than you would think.
yeah, it's a lot of all the things you need to just survive in the world, and food, household goods, clothing,
Yep.
basic clothing.
Now, some other things do have an extreme marginal cost, like healthcare. Providing one more high quality level of healthcare to a person, or adding one more person to the healthcare system, that actually incurs significant costs. But that's a different
There's only
situation.
So many surgeons, and they can only do so many surgeries.
But as a society, we should invest in reducing the scarcity of those things, even if it does cost us a lot.
Right. Things that aren't scarce shouldn't be made scarce.
Yes.
And things that are scarce, the solution is not to, milk them.
Yeah.
Right.
Some of those
The
things
solution
should be.
is to work. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Some of those things we should make less scarce on purpose. Some of those things we might agree we need to keep scarce because we're running into an intrinsic limitation. Like, there's only so many rare earth metals possibly in the world right now.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, make things as less. That's the real goal, right? Is not to make a bunch of money by making things more scarce, which is what you see these NFT people doing, intentionally making scarcity on purpose to get money. Like, that is the opposite of the goal. The goal is to make it so that there's so little scarcity that everyone can just have everything. That's what we want.
Yep.
Right?
And this is why, I've said this before. I am a communist, not like a Soviet communist. Obviously there are different types of communism, but I do honestly believe in a heavily structured economy based on a lot of full-on communist principles.
The problem with the Soviet communism wasn't so much the communism as it was the autocracy.
The autocracy, also the lack of the incremental cost of producing even basic things was a lot higher back then, and organization in a pre-computer era was very difficult.
They had some computers.
They did, but not on the scale we have to. There's a lot of things there. That's a topic too.
The point is, democracy is the first principle. Right?
But I guess where I'm going with that is that a radical revolution is probably not the way to achieve that, because the reality is right now, a lot of those capitalist systems do also exist partly because that's how a lot of people survive, because we can't make everything unscarce immediately. And the most likely path forward to achieve all the things we're talking about here. Remember when there was the healthcare debate and we had the idea of we can't just get Medicare for all because it's not popular enough, but what if we had a public option? That is the most likely practical path forward to reducing scarcity. The idea is very simple and it ties into everything we just said. And this is something you should advocate for in politics, in my opinion. Say there's a thing. Maybe the government should start producing, let's say, dinner plates. Like, there's a government dinner plate. They come in three colors.
I love this dinner plate example. You heard this and you've repeated it like 20 times.
All right, government potatoes. The government...
I don't want to hear about the dinner plate ever again.
The government runs some potato farms. And there's laws that basically say the government will sell potatoes at prices the government determines. And that is a public option. Anyone can buy the government potatoes. Now, the government does not say, like a full-on communist society would say, that no one else is allowed to make potatoes. There's a monopoly on potatoes. Instead, the government says, you are free to have capitalist potatoes, but your capitalism will always be competing with the public option, the government potato. If you try to charge too much for your potatoes, no one's going to buy your potatoes. They're going to buy the government potato.
Any better than a government potato, no one's going to buy.
Yep. But that allows a transition to a less scarce society. What by one, the government just starts competing with capitalism with things where they can set a low price and subsidize it to make sure more people can have that thing.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the moral is in your individual life, when there is something you want and there's not enough of it and you don't get it, right? I want you to think about blaming the right person. Blame the person. Is it artificial scarcity? If it's artificial scarcity, blame the person who made it artificially scarce, not necessarily someone who's taking advantage of that to make money, right? If it's not artificially scarce, blame the world. There's no way to make more. There has to be some way to decide who gets one and some don't. There's going to be winners, there's going to be losers. There's nothing you can do about that unless you're a genius and you solve all our problems. So just accept it and don't get mad, right?
Yep.
And then if there's something that is scarce and you want it, right? Some limited edition good or something because you're a nerd, right? And think about what you have to do to get it. You're going to have to wait in a line, right? Think about whether it's worth it, right? Whether you can afford it. Is it really, right? Think about it really hard because, the cost is going to be high to you, right? So just, and don't just fall for it so easily and go run out and wait in line for sneakers for 10 hours and then don't end up with anything.
Yep.
Right? You got better ways to spend your life than doing that. And
Yep.
also,
like we min-max
companies-
conventions and like all the scarce nerd stuff. We just really min-max it. I don't go after something that's scarce if there's very little likelihood I will succeed.
And to the companies out there, right? What I want you to hear is stop making things artificially scarce, obviously.
Yep.
But when things aren't artificially scarce, right now, video cards aren't artificially scarce. They're scarce.
Mm-hmm.
When you're selling them to people, right? If you insist on keeping the price, low for reasons, at least try not to make people wait in line and do bullshit. Right?
Make the
Just
thing
let
less
people-
painful. Like have a lottery. Like everyone signs up. There's a date. After that date, everyone who signed up, there's a lottery to see who
You
gets
need a
it.
lot. You can just have, hey, everyone, give me your email address and I'll email you when I have a video card. And you'll have, once you get the email, you'll have 10 minutes to buy it or not, right?
Yep.
And that way you don't have to waste your time or pay overpriced, middlemen marking it up or anything like that, right? Just make it easy for people to get the limited good. You got a sneaker, you're only going to make 1,000 for whatever reason. You've already decided to make artificial scarcity. Just say, okay, here's the website, type in your email address. We're going to email 1,000 people.
Yep.
Right. Just don't make people wait in line and suffer. Stop making people suffer for no reason. It's unintentional.
And the public option.
Intentionally.
And advocate for things like public options to reduce the harm of this type of scarcity in the first place, especially for, and again, like you can read about this on your own and dig around, but a surprising number of things have an incremental cost of making one more of 0 in the modern world. Like it is a fascinating situation we've put ourselves in as a society.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It was a solid show. Stop that. 78 views.